Okay, I guess that we are live. Cool. So, hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for registering for this webinar and joining us today. The goal is to address the integration challenges for companies with complex tech stacks. And as you know us, we are very practical. So, we will also try to provide you with a less painful solution. And our guests today are Karol Wieteska, with 15 years of experience in loyalty, holding commercial roles on the vendor side, working with big companies. Currently, he is working at OEX, a private equity investment vehicle with 2 loyalty companies in its portfolio. Hello, Karol. Thank you for joining the webinar.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Brilliant. And we also have Maciej Tyczyński with 7 years of experience in developing loyalty technology. He has worked as head of data science, director of software engineering, and is currently the CTO at Omnivy. So, without further ado, let's jump into the discussion. And this discussion is really interesting because, Karol, you triggered the whole webinar, I guess, with your article on the customer strategy network. And here's a quote. So let me just, let me just read it aloud. Most of the out-of-the-box integrations offered by pure software as a service vendors are either a marketing hoax, they literally do not exist, or offer functionality limited to a single, simple process that is just not enough in most cases. If you want more, you need to pay. So, if you could elaborate on that and explain what you mean.
Of course, it sounds like a clickbait, right? It's quite controversial, and I'm quite aware of that. But I'm quite safe to defend that. But before I do that, like I just would like to turn turn the point that the fact that vendors are investing in those kind of like out of the box integrations is already another proof that integration is in the center of the discussion of building marketing / loyalty tech stacks. So it's pretty much obvious that this is a topic, a challenge, and this is another proof. And why I feel that that might be a marketing hoax, why that does not work. I mean, like it seems that everybody's got a problem. Like the brands, obviously they have a problem with integration, and here comes a nice solution. Sounds like a dream, like you have no risks with the project. You have even no effort during the RFP phase when selecting a loyalty vendor. You see, okay, they have a out of the box integration. I can tick off the integration issue in my project. Like for the vendors, they also have the problem. The main problem of a technology vendor is customers delaying the moment to onboard a new product because of the integration issue. Integration is the number one challenge for loyalty vendors. That's pretty much also pretty much obvious. And there are even some nice reports from the infrastructure platform as a service world saying that who surveyed technology vendors, and the technology vendors say the prime objective of building out of the box integrations is speeding up the decision-making process on the customer side. So generally, it looks brilliant from the vendor perspective as well. They can already sense dollars coming in from new deals. Everybody's happy, of course. In the on the course of the way, brands might have some question marks on the way, like if they, for instance, if they see the list of integrations on the vendor website, you see 20, 40, 50 whatsoever, that if they log into the panel of that of the tool itself, they see 2 or 3. That might ring a bell, but still the spell is so strong that they proceed. And then if the problem is it gets visible when the project starts, okay? Because it's really tough to use this kind of like out of the box integration to complete a project. A project when you have a robust loyalty mechanic, combining whatever, point of sales, a e-com platform, a loyalty platform, a marketing automation platform. That really is difficult to do it. And like there are many reasons why. Maybe I believe Maciej would be the best person to give you some insights here, because yeah, he did that, right?
Yeah, and as you said, so it looks like a perfect solution for everyone, but somehow it's not working. So, Maciej, if you could just give us your perspective, like how do companies glue things together and why such out of the box solutions might not be working for everyone actually.
Okay, so Karol mentioned one major reason from the vendor perspective, which is integrations usually during the loyalty implementation project. They not a big thing during the selection process, but they become the biggest issue during the implementation process. So it's really easy to fall into the trap of seeing, 50 different logos and basically seeing, oh, okay, they have it figured out, so I won't need to do that, right? However, it's not as bright as it may seem. And from the vendor perspective, I would say the two main reasons why they do, as you mentioned, that they market 50 different integrations, and in reality they have two or three basic ones. And the first one is control, and I think it's much easier to develop a feature that you fully own and control, like being a loyalty vendor, you can have a functional enhancement in your promo engine, add a new type of coupon, and you have end-to-end control. You can make a nice video about it, slap it on the slide. It's easy to explain, it's easy to showcase, right? With every integration use case, it's way more difficult to do that. And then the other one is maybe a little bit more pragmatic, is that maintenance of features like that is way more expensive, because no matter who you integrate with, you need to keep up with their API, with their depreciation policies, with their backwards compatibilities. You need to, whenever they change something, you usually need to adjust. So it's not as simple as just doing another functional enhancement and simply doing that. But again, as you mentioned, the reason that companies are actually doing that means that it kind of makes sense, right? Now, outside of the vendor perspective, there's also a couple of objective perspective why these product to product or native integrations do not solve most of the complex use cases. And the first one I would say is just the flexibility of modern SaaS platforms, right? Almost every SaaS platform right now offers some kind of rule engine, no code, low code, flexible engine that basically allows a high degree of configurability within the platform. If you do allow that, and obviously clients expect that, it's really difficult to later on predict every single use case that client will come up using your software, right? And every SaaS platform is also counting on reusability of the feature, right? So when they do build this out of the box integrations, they will usually be very high level. They will allow for some basic data flows, like moving objects from one platform to another. But when you drill down and go into specific use cases, like real case use cases, they're usually a good start, but they won't solve your entire thing. And I'll give you an example in a second, but perhaps Karol or Irek, you want to add something to that or comment on that.
I think that you've just explained the problem in a bit of more detail, and I'm definitely interested in the use case that you're about to show us.
Right. So the use case or an example is based on the project that I was involved in, where we're integrating a loyalty platform with Shopify, which is, I don't think I need to introduce Shopify. Everyone in the SaaS world will probably know it. And in theory, integrating with Shopify is easy, right? It's a modern SaaS platform, online-based, cloud-based, with rich exposed APIs, webhooks, and multiple integration methods. But if you go down, you quickly realize that every platform has this kind of niche, or the way that they name certain objects, the way that they, for example, in this particular case, we had issue, integrating product catalog, where Shopify forces you for a specific product catalog structure. And as long as it can probably work really nicely and out of the box in the apparel slash fashion industries. If you do that and try to quickly reuse it for different industries, that, for example, B2B platform, B2B scenarios, or different industry, you quickly realize that it's not that easy. You need to adjust your product catalog, and the way you store it, for example, in your promo platform, does not necessarily need to mean that you'll be able to migrate the same structure in a one-to-one fashion, right? So first challenge here. Second is that almost every platform that you later integrate will have some limitations. And in case of Shopify, they generally protect their checkout really heavily, right? They do not really allow much of the checkout customization. It does change, and with the evolution of the platform, they do allow more and more of customizations, but they try to lock it, because this is basically where their business comes from, right? They earn money on taking interest out of the checkout fees, and a percentage of transactions that they process through their platform. So allowing easy integration or customizability of this particular element is a harm for them, right? So and then this third item is this lingo or wording that every platform is using. Most of the marketing software will have some kind of customer profile or customer object, but every single platform will call certain items differently. So figuring it out itself, it's not even about, the development or that much going into the technicalities, but even, how do you store, or how do you name, your core identifier of the customer in your platform? How do you store different custom attributes between different platforms? There's no standard or one way that every platform is using, and simply falling for a quick out of the box integration, you quickly realize that you'll end up with at least these three issues: different terminology and wording, some limitations where platforms will limit certain customization and integrability of certain objects, and then you'll have different data models or different data structures for stuff that seems repeatable between platforms, but it will be slightly different. So to sum it up, this product to product integrations are great to start with, to get some basic data flows going. But then when you go deep into looking in how all this different data will need to flow between your platforms, and more business and customer journey style use cases, you'll end up that they won't be enough. That's pretty much my experience.
And like from the business perspective, that means okay, you started, you for instance, that's your benefit. You checked out a platform, you checked out if the basic data is flowing. But if you want to, but you're building a loyalty program, you're to issue a robust campaigns that should be impacting the ROI of your business, right? So probably like just moving one object from platform 1 to platform 2 does not kind of like provide you the opportunity to generate real value for your business. So that means you need to stop using this out of the box integration and build something that allows you to build those robust campaigns, right? So that's, like ultimately you're landing in a situation when you have to build the integration, right? And that's the whole kind of
That's
like point. And then what happens next? And what happens next probably, a bit depends on what is your general approach to managing your IT architecture or your marketing technology tech stack. Like you're in a bit of a different position if you're I would say, big legacy enterprise business who is typically, relying on those, I would say, heavy vendors, all those Oracles and SAPs and Salesforces of the world, and generally outsourcing everything to the vendors, or you're kind of like falling into that more kind of like composable idea, taking control of your IT tech stack, probably having some internal resources, or generally using all those advantages that the software as a service world provides you with, right? So I think that it's quite a different situation if you're tasked to build that kind of and maintain this kind of integration, depending on which side of the equation you're in, right? So Maciej, if we can kind of like tackle the thing one by one, if you're that big Fortune, I don't know, 100, 500 whatsoever, but this stereotype of a heavy enterprise relying on very traditional way of doing IT and traditional vendors, like what's your reality, like when you're tasked to build that kind of integration?
well, today it's probably, you would probably do some kind of a custom integration by either third party or your internal technology team. And this is also funny, when you were saying that, because this is the reality and what usually happens in these projects. The customer will first fall into like, oh, they have integration already done. I won't need to worry about it. Then when they go into the implementation project, they realize, right, this will not necessarily do. So they either need to do it from scratch, and this is usually how they end up because it's way easier, if you just do it from scratch, have full control over it, you don't need to worry about it. Or they do kind of like a hybrid where, they use the native or out of the box integration for some basic scenarios, and then they build, their custom layer for a more specific use cases. Now, the problem with this is that you really like fall into the same trap that these vendors are trying to avoid by not building this product integration, because maintenance of such custom integration layer will be getting harder and harder over time. And I say it's funny because at first, all these CTOs of this Fortune 100 or 500 companies, they know what software to avoid. And, they look at APIs, they look at the solution and they say, oh, this will be hard to maintain. But then when they end up buying even, the nicest, slickest, composable solution, and they push the integration to, their internal tech team that doesn't know this software, or basically to a system integrator that is not specialized in certain area of business, they end up with this very messy integration. So like first they spend months to select great product, but then they end up ending up with integration that looks very messy, hard to maintain, very costly. Sometimes even the integration will cost more to maintain than the product itself. So the question is, does it really solve the issue, right? So yeah, custom integration is one way to go, and this is probably what most of these enterprises will go for. But then there is another, let's call it maybe newer approach, or sort of going into this joke of, oh, I'm sure there's a platform for this, or
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a software as a service for this issue, right? And there is, they call them integration platforms as a service, or iPaaS, which is also, again, like with everything, it's not a new solution. In the old world, you would call them either enterprise service bus solutions, or this API gateway management kind of platforms. Some names that may ring a bell is like MuleSoft, Informatica. All big enterprises will probably recognize those, right? And these are basically your middleware layers that you build to basically orchestrate data flows between platforms, right? And you typically they speed up pretty much those integrations between different platforms, and it's definitely a way to go. I would say, if you can use a platform like that instead of building like your own custom solution, it's probably like in the long run it will help you to like maintain some level of sanity, and basically adding new elements to your martech platform will be easier when you do have an iPaaS than
That,
if you
that would
don't.
be that would be a dream probably, but still, like the iPass, like for loyalty, is something that at least for now is not on the market. And but if you come back to the kind of like clash of the approaches towards building your IT infrastructure, or sorry, the marketing tech stack, like there's really kind of like following the composable principles makes it easier to solve the integration equation compared to the situation where you're kind of like in the legacy part of the business, and you've selected the IBM because nobody ever got fired for selecting IBM and stuff. Like what I mean. This is a shortcut, but I bet you get the point. So this kind of like moving, there's the whole buzz about composability and stuff. Does that really kind of like solve the problem? And if yes, how is that possible? Where is the difference in here?
Yeah. It doesn't. Well, I wouldn't say it, instantly solves all the problems that you may have. And also, I would argue that you don't necessarily need, an iPaaS dedicated for loyalty solutions, because that these platforms, as a general rule of thumb, they should integrate with as many platforms as possible, right? So having a separate one for loyalty is probably not the best way to go. Although, there is a case in saying that um, if these platforms are generally designed to be pretty generic, right, to be able to integrate with as many platforms as possible. So if you do come across, integrating a loyalty platform, and loyalty is a pretty specific area that you need to know how to integrate it with rest of your stack to not end up, with having multiple customer profiles in multiple systems. If you want to end up, having your online world and offline world connected, and not, have different campaigns that need to run for your online and offline, you need to know what you're doing, right? So even with iPaaSes of today and composable solutions, it still requires, some figuring out how to do it, and how not to fall into some traps. But I would say my perfect world when it comes to the loyalty integration of today would be, yeah, go with the composable out of the box solution. If it does offer, product to product integrations, that's great, because it will allow you to quickly launch, not even in months, but maybe in weeks. Maybe not launch the program, from your members' perspective, like you don't instantly in a couple of weeks say, hey, we have a new loyalty program running, but at least to have, the data flowing between the systems, Have your business team
I'm
set up
really
some
kind of
campaign.
like, does that really generate that much value? I'm still like from the from the practice of some projects. Does that really generates that big difference? Where the big problem is still to be solved in that ways, and now the question is if you're really following these kind of like composable principles in building generally, you selected the platform that is API first, and that works on webhooks and all those fancy stuff, and you have some internal IT architecture resources that can that you're in control generally of your IT marketing tech stack. You control the big picture, and maybe either you have some internal integration resources that are able to glue and quickly incorporate any new component to your tech stack very fast, or you have a good marketing tech stack integrator that understands the marketing world, that is able to do that for you. Does that really kind of like help to speed up this integrations, or is it just better to kind of like move it away towards a generalist vendor that is supposed to do it all the way?
Well, I would argue that the first option is better just because it's quicker at the end of the day. Like, because the other one only, I would say, it only speeds things up in theory or on paper, right? They'll tell you, okay, we'll handle everything. But then if you go into timelines, you end up, okay, we need to analyze all the requirements, make sure we understand all the different systems, and then you end up, your initial plan of going live within months turns into 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, or even a year, because there are stuff that you didn't think about when you were analyzing or collecting your requirements. My opinion is that it's much better to simply go quickly, deploy as soon as possible, and start tackling these integration issues as soon as possible, because maybe you'll end up not starting with the full scope of your program. Maybe you'll have 5 out of 10 business processes or scenarios covered, but you'll be live in 2 or 3 months instead of 10 or 12 months. And I guess that's really the equation that every marketing, CMO, CTO, loyalty manager need to take. Like, what's more important for them? Launch quickly and iterate, and adjust to new requirements. And if yes, composable is the way to go. Composable plus some smart integration layer around it, or a partner that can do it for you, or go with a vendor that will do everything for you, and pretty much end up, not knowing really when and what you'll be getting in whatever month's time. That's the sad reality, I would say.
Because from my perspective, the good example of how does that help to build a proper tech stack is like, for instance, like, imagine there's a new solution on the market. Imagine that, or you have a new need. You need to work more on personalization of your communications, right? And you have all those Bloom reaches and other new tools that are on the market. And the question is, how quickly will you be able to start using it and commercializing it? And then how quickly you can replace it with another thing. All right. So like, if you're in control of your IT architecture, if you're using the composable components, and you either can do that integrations quickly, because it's easier, because these tools are made to be integrated, maybe not necessarily with those out of the box dream integrations, because we already know that does not really solve the end problem. But you have a team that is able to do it not in months but days/weeks, or you have an integrator that understands the marketing technology world, that is then showing you the difference, right? If you are able to commercialize this kind of like new tool in a year, because this is how long it's going to take to integrate, to maybe, I don't know, modify the API of your, legacy loyalty or marketing automation platform with the legacy vendor, and it will cost you, like several $100,000. That's the real difference. That's how you build a competitive advantage. And I feel that, I've mentioned that this is a legacy, big enterprise businesses are doing it the old way. Of course, it's not fair, because like there's many those of those big companies are undergoing this transformation and moving towards this kind of like composable thing. But of course, these are huge ships, and probably the time needed to kind of like change course is a bit kind of like slower. But if they do change, they are moving then in fast pace, and we have several great ideas of those giants that are really leveraging those new technologies because they can integrate quickly, right?
Okay. So as I'm hearing, like, speed is the clue here. So on the business side, this is like speed to profitability. So how fast can we produce something that makes us money, and then we can actually show the profit, right? So this is the speed element on the business side. And when it comes to the speed element on the technological side, is like, how fast can we implement it? How fast can we iterate it? And also, how fast can we change it if we decide that
Absolutely.
it's not a tool for us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think this is and this is going to become maybe not question number one, but probably in top three of, when selecting technology for CTOs, CIOs of these big companies. Is not is how quickly we can get it running, is the traditional one, and we've heard it for decades. But now the new question is how quickly we can swap it for something else, how quickly we'll be able to replace it. And I guess answers of years will not be a green flag. It will be a red flag if someone says, well, actually, it will take us probably a year or two because it's customized, because it's heavily integrated, or integrated in a very static way with the rest of our stock. The solutions that will benefit are the ones that can be quickly turned on and off, switched, replaced, and adjusted because of changed either business requirements or new trends that will be popping up.
And I guess that it also like shows how the like choosing the vendor and the sales process has changed along the years, because right now it's more about like figuring out the proof of concept. So it's everything you've just said, like choosing the right tech and being able to deliver the MVP, and then just like checking it out, and then okay, suddenly if we are able to make profit out of this component, fine, we're taking it, right? So it's not a guess, but it's like sort of like a data informed decision as well. So I would say that this composable approach that allows you to figure out the proof of concept and see for yourself, is this particular technology is serving the business, or like is basically allowing you to put certain use case into reality. That's what we can see right now, right?
Correct. And I would also add to that don't fall into, like, don't forget about the integration at the selection phase. And the fact alone that something has a nice API or an out of the box connector will not usually solve the problem. Obviously, if you're big enough and have complex enough ecosystem. If you're small and agile, you're probably good to start there. But don't fall into the trap of seeing, oh, we have our solution pre-integrated with everything else. There's usually a little asterisk saying, but only in this and that scenario.
Gotcha. Yeah. Of course. Okay, so we are slowly wrapping up, but before we finish, And before I say thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise, I would like to go back to our community perspective, because like before our meeting, I sent out an email, and then James came back to me with his perspective. The question was basically about the challenges when it comes to integrating. So his answer is like truly spot on as well, and I would like you to perhaps like elaborate on it, or just like give your take here, because what he's saying is he thinks that the biggest issues are actually small in stature but big in mind. So new words and terms that most might not be familiar with and won't say mean agreements get made without full understanding. So the other issue is that expectation mismatch between the team saying yes, providing funding, board, and the deployment team who actually have to deliver. So basically, people are the challenge in an odd way. Have you seen something similar in your experience?
Yeah, like absolutely. That's 100% true, and nothing to add really. Like, is there a solution? Probably, communication, double checking, but still, the problem is that the bigger the organization, probably the difficult this topic gets, right? So
Sure.
that's for sure. But I believe the more kind of like informed you are, the more you kind of like are aware of, for instance, this, I would say, hidden trap that can be that it usually is in a hidden trap in every martech loyalty projects. So the integration. So the more we talk about it, the more people get kind of like informed, probably the better.
Sure.
I would probably just do one small comment, sort of making it a bit closer to the loyalty space, because when you were reading it, what it resembled to me is, this common scenario that we're seeing where a company hires an external consultant to come up with a loyalty strategy. And they're usually really experienced. They've done it plenty of
Yeah, but
times. They know the
but but
industry.
but usually they're not loyalty experts. That's a kind of like also a typical problem, if you, especially if you hire, those kind of like big four, big five
Oh
consultant,
yeah, right.
brilliant companies, brilliant knowledge in many areas, but really rarely experts on loyalty. And then you doubled your problem.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you hire
That's
because
even a
consultants
different.
fine as long as it really they are from the loyalty world, and they really know what this business is all about.
Yeah, that's even a different scenario. But I had in mind, even if you go with like someone who's a real pro in loyalty, you hire someone that built amazing programs around the world, they'll come to you and they'll create this brilliant strategy that your company should follow, and it's all really exciting and flashy, and usually has lots of best practices built, or we build it on top of a set of best practices. But then you go to your system integrator, or your tech team, internal tech team, and translating this grand strategy onto a harsh reality of okay, but what systems we need to integrate together to actually get this customer's journeys alive. This is where the issues start popping up, and I saw it firsthand a couple of times, where this clash of grand business strategy and execution is becoming brutal. So that's why the takeaway, I would say, is in a niche of loyalty, probably want to go with a company that knows really well the loyalty business, and knows how to execute it later on and takes responsibility for it, because the consultant, the strategy consultant, will not take responsibility for execution, right? Or very rarely they will do. They will take responsibility for the strategy, for delivering the strategy. Maybe some will take responsibility, but then if you implement the strategy, you will guarantee the results, the business results. But execution is usually, they'll say, oh yeah, you need to find a company to execute it, and then this company that executes it does not have understanding of loyalty business. So finding a partner that will either do both, so both the strategy and implementation integration, or at least has experience in doing loyalty projects is a way to go, I would say, to sort of comment on this great comment that James provided.
Cool.
So,
and
so
and
then
I
it,
also believe that it also like definitely just in a way shows composable approach in this like sort of like that, okay, here we have this flexibility that we need, because like depending on like how the strategy looks like, what it implies, we need technology that is going to be flexible enough to reflect it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So overall, I feel that we're coming to a conclusion that first, you should not believe that out of the box integrations are the solution to the integration problem. That's number one. Then number two, you need to choose a composable loyalty platform, because then you get the flexibility. Then you open yourself for the opportunity to work really agile and quick. Then reach out to loyalty integrators that know about MarTech, like Omnivy. So like composable tools like Open Loyalty, and IT integrators like Omnivy, and on the end of the day, you might get a shortcut if you find an iPass that will make that even a bit easier. So that would be that comes as a conclusion, doesn't it?
Sure. And if you feel like restricted by the current tech capabilities, perhaps this is the moment to actually like look at the composable architecture and giving it a try. In like the proof of concept, this is something that I'm really a fan of, because like you can come up with this basic idea, and then implement it. And then, as Maciej said, if the integration process doesn't take 6 months, but it's 2 week long, or it's a month, so you can easily just do it, see if it works. And Karol, as you've mentioned, if it makes us profit, if it brings us money, let's go with it. If it doesn't, let's kill it.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Karol. Thank you, Maciej. And thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, and then everyone in the community, in the audience. So I hope that this was valuable, and see you soon during the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.